Eastern Standard Time as I launch into this wonderful world of live radio. Let's see, here we go, live on YouTube on through my my Zoom meeting. Zoom, by the way, is a tremendous resource, I must say. I mean, it's maybe one of the few good things that have come out of the pandemic is that we can now do Zoom. And for my purposes, it's the best doing these live programs. So here we go, live on YouTube, and let me just go live on TikTok, and then we shall be on a roll. And go live. Thank you very much, and welcome to the program, everyone. Charles Moskowitz, Monday through Friday, 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You're welcome to join the program. Let me just get my thing going here. Okay, and this is a live program, so that means that I do take calls, and you can do that. Let me just get Skype running here. All these little things I have to do. You can join the program by dialing up a good old-fashioned phone number, 617-396-4958 is the number. What is on your mind this afternoon? 617-396-4958. And there we are. Okay, my phone number is functioning. The program is heard now on, I think it's 10 different live streams. And of course, YouTube being the flagship and TikTok. So come on down, 617-396-4958. I'm doing an open lines program today. Tomorrow at this time, I'll be joined by Dr. Steve Turley, who is a great nationalist thinker. He's been doing programming going back. He's been involved in European politics. He was very involved in the MAGA movement, the deplorables, which of which I am one of them easily. You know, he did a great job covering the election and the election steal. So I mean, I cannot complain about Steve Turley. And then Wednesday, I've got Matthew Vadum, who is an author and columnist. I think he works with WorldNet Daily. Looking to get Dr. Jerome Corsi on. I think he might be having a few problems right now, quite frankly, with issues of censorship. He's being purged from the atmosphere, as it were, which of course is what's going on with a lot of people. This is a time when we are, I mean, I don't want to put like a happy face on this. I would argue, and I do contend, that we are entering into a time of soft Nazism. We have, first of all, the cornerstone of this is the stolen election, but more significantly, the policies that are being put in place, both overt and otherwise, culturally, are a return to an old, regressive, authoritarian, socialistic modality. What's the new conspiracy now that literally nothing you guys said would happen? Well, something, I mean, I'll tell you one thing. We certainly rejected the biggest conspiracy theory that has been put forth over the past at least 10 years. And that was the one that held that President Donald Trump was spying for Russia. I wonder if you, my TikTok friend, bought into that one, because if you did, you would have had a lot of company in the mainstream Mockingbird media and in the Mueller group, which spent $40 million investigating this. And now it's turned out, and it's come out due to the declassification of information, thanks to the work of Judicial Watch and Tom Fitton, that in fact, indeed, this was a plot to discredit Trump and try to slow him down, if not take him out, and that it was done partially on the behest of then candidate Hillary Clinton. We see the declassification, for example, of a letter or an email sent by CIA Director John Brennan to Hillary saying, don't worry about the email scandal. Don't worry about the fact you've been caught with top secret information on a private server. Don't worry. And none of this matters, let alone the embarrassment of the country seeing that you had used your office as Secretary of State to raise money, basically, and lots of money to the so-called Clinton Foundation and the Clinton Global Initiative, which were both, slush funds of the Clintons and used to help, pay up, buy up their friends and hurt their enemies. Never mind that, because we're going to do this whole Trump-Russia thing. And we've got this dossier that we're developing to use against him. So, don't tell me about conspiracy theories. That's the big conspiracy theory. As far as the election itself, I think that I stand by the contention that was a conspiracy. We could take a look at a list of conspiracy theories and note that some of them are probably true and some of them are more likely not true. And I should probably go through a whole list of them and tell you which ones I think are true and which ones are not true. But we have to recognize that, first of all, because it's a theory means we don't have enough facts to say it's absolutely true. We don't have proof. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a theory. It would be a fact. And so we need to operate in a responsible manner by trying to discern what is true and what's false. I mean, I wrote a book about looking at conspiracy theories around the assassination or the untimely demise of various American leaders, going all the way back to Alexander Hamilton. And I bring it up to today with a look at the famous Clinton body count and the death of Tim Russert and some other deaths, even Andrew Breitbart. And I look at whether or not this was an assassination. My book is called Assassination in America. And, look, to suggest that there may not have been a conspiracy to have someone removed is the height of not only naivete, being generous, but it's actually not consonant with reality. Of course, people are assassinated. It happens all the time. I mean, yes, people are destroyed. Yes, there are conspiracies which plot to get rid of people. And that, yes, I would argue, and I think the evidence is quite convincing, that Donald Trump won the election by a large number on election night, and that the establishment conspired to make sure that he was not sworn in. I would argue that, and I stand by that. And, anyone who says, well, I'm putting on a tin hat, well, fine. What I would say to you is, why didn't you support an investigation of the evidence? Why didn't the mainstream media ever investigate? Why didn't they look, for example, at the Dominion software and the algorithms? They did not. Why didn't they look at the affidavits, the 1,000 affidavits, signed, sworn testimony on the pains of perjury by witnesses to fraud? They did not. And when they did, they only mocked them and criticized. Why didn't we take a look at the fact that state governors and state judges and state bureaucrats were making up laws as the election approached without the approval of Congress, of the state legislators, which is unconstitutional? It's a violation of Article 1, Section 1 of the Constitution. Why didn't anybody ask about that, huh? Who's they? Trump controlled the entire... No, Trump did not control the entire government. Trump, we now know that, in fact, and this is one of the, in a sense, the flaws of the Trump administration, and President Trump personally, probably, in that he did not really control all elements of his office. There were some bad actors in there. You know, I mean, Barack Obama, who was a control freak, he embedded into the White House bureaucracy various people who were not going to be loyal to Trump and who would come up and stab him at the right time, not literally, figuratively. We saw that during the phony impeachment, during the Rush, the Ukraine perfect phone call, when you had those two brothers, I forget their name right now, the Ukrainian brothers, the twin brothers, both of whom had been implanted by Obama into the bureaucracy there, and both of whom suddenly came up and they tried to destroy Trump. In the case of the one who put on the military uniform to testify before Congress, his entire testimony was based upon his disagreement with President Trump on foreign policy. Who the hell was he? He wasn't president. The president decides those things, and then he works with a Secretary of State and with Congress. And yet this was accepted, and he was held up as a hero. And then his brother, it turns out, was involved with setting up, the so-called whistleblower, and they were put in there by Obama, and they were disloyal. So no, Donald Trump did not have full control of his government, and that's maybe a flaw on his part, because maybe he didn't. He was too trusting. Maybe, I don't know. We know now that Attorney General William Barr, I would suggest he was not flying right. He sat on the evidence of Hunter Biden's laptop at the FBI for over a year. That had incriminating evidence on it that would have completely pulled the rug out from under the impeachment, and it probably would have destroyed Biden's career early on. He didn't release that until after the election. That's not loyal. That's not control of the government. And in his case, he spoke a great game. He sounded brilliant, and he had great conservative values. But he didn't do diddly squat. I mean, he was a phony. All he did was obfuscate and blow a lot of wind. So Trump did not control his government as well as he should have. By the way, you're welcome to join the conversation. 617-396-4958 is the number. Charles Moskowitz, Monday through Friday, 12 noon to 1 p.m. I'm doing a live broadcast here, so you can come on down and join me. What's on your mind? These or any other issues are all fair game, as long as we keep it in the realm of propriety and good taste. And no, don't use the forbidden words, particularly the N word. Just let's keep things on the up and up. 617-396-4958. So if you did wonderful, it's really hard to see through with you backing Biden and turning on this. I don't know who you're talking about there, but I'm not. I don't know if you're saying that I'm backing Biden. I recognize him as the president of the United States, and I recognize Kamala Harris as the vice president of the United States because they were sworn in at the inauguration, and therefore they are president and vice president. Not because I back them, I don't, but I recognize reality. I don't want to be one of these people who says he's not my president, because that's what they tried to do to Trump, and that was wrong. Having said that, I will criticize the policies as they come out and praise them if they're right, and so far it's been terrible. We'll get into that in a minute. But I just want to finish talking just a little bit more about the election steal, because I'm not prepared to let go of that. Though she's talking to someone else. Okay, Rand Paul said it was rigged. Good, it was rigged. Everyone knows it. And that if someone says, well, you're engaging in a conspiracy theory, well, fine. You can bring up the fact that there was never evidence presented in the proper forum because it was obfuscated. It was blocked. It was never presented by the media. It was never presented by the states who had engaged in illegal activities with regard to switching around voter laws to help Biden. It was never investigated in terms of the affidavits. It was never investigated from the courts because all of the courts except one basically kicked the ball down the road. They refused to hear the evidence. They dismissed the cases on technicalities, so it never actually entered a courtroom where the American people could hear the evidence and then make up their own mind. And then we could have people who said, no, this is false. They could also speak. There could be both sides heard, and we get to the bottom of it. That's what a courtroom is supposed to do. That's why we have trials. You have a jury who has to sift through conflicting evidence and make a determination based upon an imperfect view. That's what our court system, our independent judiciary, is supposed to offer. They failed, including the Supreme Court. And then finally, the last resort, the last, in a sense, public forum was to be the U.S. Congress on January 6th, when they counted the electoral ballots. It was at that point that 7 states who were contesting the election and who had evidence that fraud had been committed to the point where their elections were questionable and maybe not legitimate, finally, we would have an opportunity to hear that evidence. And it didn't happen. It didn't happen because of these clowns, these people dressed in Halloween costumes, either invading or being allowed to invade the U.S. Capitol building, which is terrible and outrageous, but which stopped, I mean, it didn't serve President Trump. It stopped what should have been a public airing, the last case public airing of the evidence. So that stopped. They had to suspend Congress. And then they reconvened at like 12 midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning when everyone was asleep. Just like on election night, they waited until midnight before they shut down the votes in those certain states. And then they just gavelled Biden through without anyone seeing it. So we never will know, will we? It'll be forever, in limbo, ever in abeyance. And even now, after the inauguration, you still have the state of Arizona with some honest state legislators demanding testimony from election officials in Maricopa County and demanding a full forensic audit because there is reason to believe that the Dominion voting machines were rigged in a way that helped Biden, and there are some other irregularities. And I listened to an interview about this actually yesterday on with Steve Bannon and his War Room pandemic show. And that's being subverted. I mean, you had a canvasser on that show, a state rep who was actually leading the effort to subpoena these officials, and which is something that they have to answer to. And she said that, they're going to come in and yes, they're going to have an audit, but it's not going to be a real audit. She said they're not going to really take a look at all the votes to see what they look like, to see which ones look, the mail-ins, which are pristine, they obviously weren't mailed, the ones that only have Biden's name on them. They're not going to check to see if the vote is actually affiliated with a voter. They're not going to do any of that. They're just going to do a sample. In other words, they're going to sweep the whole friggin' thing under the rug. We're never going to get to the bottom of it, and they're never going to let us get to the bottom of it. It's over. They have stolen the election, and they're just going to continue to not only prevent any legitimate investigation, but now they're going to demonize anyone who questions those results. Okay, that will never happen if they want unity in this country. I don't think they care. They've got the army. They've got the occupation of Washington. to if anyone wants to F around with their new regime, they're going to find out that things ain't so easy to do. So we're never going to get to the bottom. Any investigation is going to be obfuscated. And the general party line now, and it's an ugly one, that's being put forth by the conspirators, the Democratic Party establishment, their friends in the media, all the same people that pulled off the election steal, is that those of us who went to Washington to protest are insurrectionists, we're terrorists, we're white supremacists, we're whatever other name they can attach to us, and that they want to investigate anyone who was involved in encouraging that protest, including Senator Josh Hawley and Senator Ted Cruz, both of whom are being asked to resign. I mean, this was a civil rights event. This was like Martin Luther King Jr.'s March on Washington in the summer of 1962. What could be a more basic civil right than the right to vote, the right of one man, one vote, the sacred integrity of the vote? That's all this was about. They were asking Congress to investigate the integrity of the vote, particularly in the 7 states that had been contested. They wanted to see the evidence come up in the fore. And it was about to when the whole thing got shut down. They have actual vote counters admitting they helped Biden. Of course there are. There's already been 3 or 4 people charged with voter fraud. And yes, the vote counters, many of whom it seems were paid by Zuckerberg, who spent $400 million in certain precincts, maybe George Soros. And plus, they're not going to talk. Plus, a lot of them are ideologues. They think it was right and proper to steal the election. They don't care about the truth. They're proud to have stopped Trump. They think Trump is evil. They're happy about the outcome because they wanted this to be the outcome. So they feel perfectly justified engaging in fraud. And so we're not going to get to the bottom of it through any of the official venues because they're the same people who tried to stop it. Okay, so let me open the phone lines. You're welcome to join the program. We're doing an open lines show here, so come on down. 617-396-4958 is the phone number. What is in your mind? 617-396-4958. As I take calls. And please don't wait. If you're going to call the show, please don't wait until after 1 o'clock because if I don't get calls by then, I'm probably going to wrap things up. And what's happened in the last week anyways, was that after I had already shut everything down, suddenly I'm getting calls. So please don't wait. If you're going to call, do it now. Please come on down. You're welcome. 617-396-4958. He will never be my president. I'm looking at TikTok. I don't agree with that. I mean, even though I would argue that the election was stolen, and even though I would argue that we are, as a result, descending into a slow slide toward a soft form of Nazism. And even though I intend to fight against that with everything I have, I still recognize that we had an inauguration and the president and vice president were sworn in, and therefore they are the president and vice president. And I even would go even further and say that I'm hoping, probably against hope, that they're going to do well because I want this country to do well. I want our people to do well. I want my neighbors to do well. I want myself to do well and my family and my friends and my community. He is an illegitimate president. Okay. Hello, you're on the air. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, hi. This is Mark Ross. I have a question.
Yes, Mark, go right ahead.
Yes. Is there any truth to, I guess, the rumors that possibly the military is going to take over the government and Biden and his administration will be removed? Is there any truth to that?
As of right now, there's not. I mean, who knows what could happen? I think that it's very interesting that you have more military presence in Washington, D.C. than you've had since the Civil War. We've had more men in uniform, men and women in uniform in the nation's capital than in Iraq and Afghanistan combined. So something seems to be going on.
And you see the military turning their backs to the motorcade of Biden.
Well, I mean, he's not well respected in military circles. I mean, we saw how well President Trump is respected and was at West Point. There's a huge outpouring of respect. And I also think that from a policy standpoint, Donald Trump was a peace president. He did not engage in any new wars. He started to withdraw American personnel from overseas. He started to get our allies to pay for their own defense in the case of NATO. And he began to de-escalate foreign wars. So, Biden already is starting to apparently set up troops to go to Afghanistan and Iraq. So we're getting back into the old, rotten, internationalist, globalist policy of using America as a gendarme for the world and, basically perpetual war for perpetual peace. It's very troubling and it's very predictable.
It is, and they're very brazen, more so than ever. How they manipulate the media. It's like they don't even care what it looks like. And it seems to me that they're frightened, that they're very, very frightened of Trump. And
they should be.
Yeah, they should be, exactly.
And now they're, of course, trying to go for the, it's very brazen that they feel confident in their power, both in terms of manipulating the media, that they're actually going to try to impeach him now that he's out of office, which is, it's just like, I think it's overreach. I think that this is an example. The left always does this. They go just a little too far, and as a result, they're exposed. I mean, the entire case, which apparently is being debated in the U.S. Senate today, is that, I mean, it's his worst conspiracy theory than the one that held that Trump was spying for the Russians, or that Trump had done something wrong by asking the Ukrainian president to look into a corrupt American official. This one holds that Trump wanted some ragtag people dressed in Halloween costumes to basically break down the door at the U.S. Capitol and seize control of the government. I mean, that's what an insurrection is, and that they were going to go, and what are they going to do? They're going to put the government under arrest and and take over so that he could still be president. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
And they discovered they had Antifa people in there dressed up as Trump supporters. To me, it was most mind-blowing, and I know I'll let you go after this, is that people that I once respected a lot in business, I've been on Wall Street a long time, they're intelligent people, that they just won't allow themselves to even investigate and look at it. They just, and somebody else who I respect said to me, you better stop speaking like a Trump supporter, or you're going to lose your associates on Wall Street, because it speaks to your character. And I got the chills when that man said it to me, because I've known him for 20 years, and he's a very brilliant guy from Scarsdale, and I was blown away that he said that.
Well, I get that. I mean, it's troubling, and it is what's happening. People are going to lose their jobs. People are going to, I mean, this is ugly. I mean, they can't really do too much to me, but I am sympathetic to someone has a high visible job in a profession, or someone who's a college student, or someone who kind of has to play ball with the liberal leaning, what we used to call the Eastern Seaboard liberal establishment, because they could end up, I mean, I lost a job when Trump was elected. So, I mean, I get that. I mean, this is real. This is
it's dangerous and it's real.
It is.
I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. You're welcome. Thank you. And you're welcome to join in 617-396-4958. I wish I had better news. 617-396-4958. But yeah, I mean, they're drawing up lists of enemies lists. We're going to see. That's what I'm talking about when I say soft Nazism. You know, on top of the actual stealing of the election, which I think they feel there's a slight glimmer of guilt over that among some people who may still have a few scruples. There is an overreach, an attempt to cover it up by claiming that Trump was responsible for the, these nutcakes who tried to, invade the Capitol and act ridiculous. And by the way, yes, it is a tragedy that some people were killed, but they even were not were nonviolent for the most part. I know I've gotten in trouble for saying that with even some people in my own circle. Charles, why are you not updated on current events? What are you talking about? Please update me. Call in. I'm working to be as updated as I can be here. 617-396-4958. 617-396-4958. I mean, I will tell you, I didn't really have a chance this morning to look at too much news, only because I started my college class this morning. I'm actually I'm getting a degree in sociology, and my class today is in statistics, which is not a subject that I'm particularly interested in or good at, and I'm nervous about because I'm not. My strength is not math or science. And so I spent a lot of time preparing for that. Hello, thank you for joining me. Who is this?
This is Laura.
Hi, Laura. What's on your mind?
I have a question in regards to the White House currently right now.
Yes.
Do we know if President Trump will be in by March 4th? I mean, I've watched Simon Parks and all this other stuff.
Right. What are they saying?
Right now? Is FEMA involved right now along with National Guard?
I don't know about FEMA. I know the National Guard has been mobilized in Washington and probably on state level.
Well, we've heard many things in regards to FEMA.
Yes.
Okay. And I was just wanting to see if
Now, are you making reference to FEMA with setting up like internment camps? Is that the question?
Well, I wanted to see if between FEMA, everything you hear, everything we've been hearing, Q and all this other stuff.
Right.
If there's anything truth to that or
I don't know, but what I can tell you is that apparently there have been detainment facilities set up in Germany right now to deal with people who are in violation of COVID-19. Now, that could be a lever, that could be a trigger to do the same here. I think we have to be very careful about that, very concerned. I'm not saying it's happening. I don't have any firsthand knowledge about that. But, in this atmosphere, we have to be very, very careful. These things can happen, and they can happen on the turn of a dime. There could be one incident where somebody, in a way similar to the Capitol incursion, you'll have some nut do something crazy, and then they'll be blamed on the Trump supporters. And before you know it, we could have people round up. I don't doubt that. Whether that could be, how that would manifest, I don't know. But, it's a concern if that's what you're talking about.
Okay. Another question, too, is basically DC or that right now, is it separate from this country right now?
Are you talking about this theory that was discussed on my program by David Whitehead and others that this is a corporation and that DC is not? Yeah, I don't really buy that because first of all, if that were true, then Donald Trump was sworn in Washington. I mean, every president's been sworn in Washington since Jefferson. So I take somewhat of a jaundiced eye to that one. I mean, I don't know, but I don't know if even if that were true, then nothing has changed in that regard. I don't think since Jefferson. So I don't know if we need to, whatever. I mean, it's not harmful to speculate about that, but I generally think that I accept maybe a more conventional view, which is that the federal government is
all this stuff is the fact that we have so many Americans that are so concerned with everything the way it's going that are hoping that the so-called deep state is taken down. All this corruption.
Well, we all hope that. I mean, we don't all, but I mean, look, that's what President Trump was all about. Did President Trump do a good job? I would say he did as good a job as he could do out of the circumstances. We obviously, we can sit here comfortably and wish he had done better, but he was right in the belly of the beast. And yes, his entire movement was about taking down this amorphous, colossal, internationalist, illuminated deep state that is not loyal to this country. And I think that's, it's not easy. I mean, I had on my program a while ago this Professor Michael Glennon, who is an insider. He was a Senate counsel for Obama, for the U.S. Senate. Now he's a professor at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy here in my neck of the woods at Tufts University. And he wrote a book called Double Government, where he talks about just this. He says that he dates it to the signing by President Truman of the National Security Act of 1947, which set up the CIA, the National Security Council, the NSA, and a bunch of other agencies. And he says that these agencies have become so powerful and so interconnected internationally, and so with such access to off-the-books money, they don't worry about Congress allocating money, and that their tentacles are in all parts of our government. They're in the Supreme Court, they're in Congress, they're everywhere, that they constitute a double government. And I had a really interesting interview with him, and he didn't like some of my conclusions, but he respected it. I mean, it's like, in a way, if you draw it to its natural conclusion, you have to recognize that we now have a bureaucratic government that is not elected, that is not accountable, that is faceless. Steve Bannon accurately described it as the administrative state. Barack Obama bragged about it which is, I think, one of the reasons why they made him president, in an interview he gave when he was an unknown state rep in Illinois, where he said the best way to overturn the Constitution is not to come out with amendments and not to do it openly, but to do it through administrative decisions. In other words, you transfer power to unelected bureaucrats and administrators, including international ones that are not even American, and you give them governing power. You give them the ability to make laws. That's why this election was stolen, because you did not have state legislators in 4 states, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, and Wisconsin, making regulations and laws on elections based upon what the people wanted. Instead, you had unelected people, bureaucrats, governors who don't have the constitutional authority, simply making them up as they went. That's why they stole the election. They were able to do that. So to take them on is very difficult.
Another thing. I don't know if one's view, like Kim Clement and prophecies as far as God, seeing fulfillment with that, because that also supports things that are coming along. It's interesting to try to tie it all together. Not necessarily saying, well, conspiracy theories or whatever, but we know God has a plan as well.
Yeah. No, I've heard some interesting speculation on that.
Together right now.
I mean, I've heard some very interesting speculation on that. That's not an area of expertise for me. Probably should have some guests on. I think there's this Rabbi Khan who talks about that, who does look at scripture and does look at certain events happening. One of the things that I seem to recall is that apparently in the book of Revelations, and I don't necessarily ascribe to this, I'm not a Christian actually, so I mean, it's not part of my canon, but there is this idea that that Gog and Magog, which is Russia, will be sending military personnel to the borders of Israel. And that's apparently happening. right? I mean, Russia.
Well,
Putin.
and many times you see fulfillment due to the fact. I, of course, know the Bible very well, and you see fulfillment in the fact that Israelites are God's chosen people,
right?
And you're not going to have with Biden in right now, currently, with them turning towards Iran, turning towards Israel, and as well as China, because the destruction of Israel will never happen. So we're seeing that now, which makes me think that just maybe, you tie everything together. Well, conspiracy theory or not, you have to look at different outlets, but you also know God is in charge, really. I mean, truly. No man can ever doubt that.
No, I believe that ultimately, yes. I mean, and good will come out of a lot of the evil that's going on because we have free will and because we are directed, even though we're fallen beings, in the direction of getting to truths. And that's our job right now, to just simply identify truths and wake people up.
Right.
Anyhow, listen, I want to thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Please
so
call
much
again. My pleasure.
God bless you. Have a good day.
God bless you as well. All right, and you're welcome to join the program. We're doing an open lines program today. 617-396-4958 is the number. 617-396-4958. Come on down. You're welcome to join the program. I do this thing of mine every afternoon from 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm live on about 10 different live streams, picking up more all the time. The flagship live stream is YouTube, where you can see both myself and my guest. I don't have a guest today, so you just see me, my old fat face, but whatever. And you can hear the program on about a dozen other live streams, plus TikTok. I am running live on TikTok today. My TikTok account was restored after I had a 7-day suspension. Let's see. I would let you have some for dinner, but I don't understand what that means. Anyways, yeah, Latino vets for Biden. Fine. That's your right. I will say that President Trump picked up a very large increased share of votes from Latinos in this election. I know that they say that had a lot to do with his winning so handily in Florida and also in Texas and here in my own home state of Massachusetts. President Trump did better. And he got a pretty interesting bump in Lawrence, in Fall River, and in Holyoke. All three have large Hispanic populations. I think he got 10%, and he got even a little bump in Boston. Why are mainstream media only loyal to the Democratic Party? What a great question that is. Well, because, the Democratic Party, which has been really, it's not the same Democratic Party of John F. Kennedy or Tip O'Neill, or Hubert Humphrey. It's now a left-wing party. They have become socialists. And I would suggest they've become fascists because they embrace a brand of socialism that is more akin to National Socialism than it is to communism. And that is something that is attracted to people who are corrupt because it's power. What is socialism? It's earthly power and the attaining of that power. And by any means necessary. It doesn't stand for values. And there are people in the media who are attracted to that. They've been co-opted by it. I also think that the socialists, starting in the 1960s, they've done the same thing to the media that they've done to academia and to our institutions of culture, even our businesses, even our churches, is that they have wormed their way in. It's what Antonio Gramsci called the Great March Through the Culture. They have grown in influence, they have promoted their own, and they have gotten rid of their opposition over time, usually through attrition and through these are people, they're Fabians. They'll look at something over a 100-year period. And now we're at the point where they do control the media. They control the cultural high ground. They control the financial high ground. And I would even say they control many of our churches. You Trump people just don't want to let go, good Lord. Did I say, am I pushing a conspiracy theory? I'm debunking. I do say that there was a conspiracy to steal with the election. Yeah. I guess in that sense, yes, I am sticking with a conspiracy theory. I think there was a conspiracy to steal the election. I recognize the results. I recognize Biden as president and Harris as vice president. But I will continue to demand that we investigate this conspiracy. Otherwise, we're never, ever going to have another free election. And by the way, Biden's first bill, it's very interesting. You have to check it out. I think it's H.R. 1, is calling for enhancing the very rules that led to the election steal. And if that passes, we're never going to have another free election. It basically prevents counties, and it's a direct, first of all, it's a direct federal interference in election law, which is run by the states, with the exception of a federal law, which says that it's state legislators that shall make the laws. But in this case, it makes it very difficult for counties, cities, precincts to purge their voter rolls of people who had either passed away or who had moved out of state. It de facto lowers the voting age to 16. It basically bans any form of national ID. In other words, it continues to allow mail-in ballots, and it continues to allow harvesting. So check this out. This is a bill that's going to be coming up in the next week. I'm going to be getting more into this as the week goes on. I'm probably going to read it. The American people better wake up, because they're codifying all the tools that they used to steal the election. They're trying to make them all legal. And if that happens, we're never going to have another free election in this country. That's my contention. All right, let's see. Trump and the GOP tried to cheat. How so? That's this is inverted. You're engaging in a massive example of reassignment. There's a psychological term for this. Projection. All the Trump people wanted to do was to have the evidence presented that the vote had been stolen. They wanted the laws to be upheld in the states that were targeted for theft by making sure that the state legislators made the laws. That's all. That's just, they were trying to uphold the law. Please block this troll. Okay, I know there's the guy with the lighthouse. He does aggravate me. I'm a hardworking Indian immigrant. Try that, Karen. Why can't any Biden supporter make a factual statement and be specific about anything? Because they're speaking in the style of language that was described by French scholar Elaine Benescon as totalitarian language. Double talk, sophistries, innuendo, code words, secret language, it's like almost Masonic. Probably is Masonic. And one of the reasons we love Trump, and one of the reasons why he won, is because he didn't do any of that. He spoke plainly. He spoke bluntly, sometimes a little too plainly. I love Trump, but I get the fact that some people find his style a little abrasive and upsetting. I thought it was hilarious. Still do. But the salient factor there is that he spoke in plain, simple American English. He didn't use double talk, didn't use innuendo. And we knew what was going on. And now we're going back to those days of totalitarian language. Everything is back to the innuendo. It's like trying to nail Jello to the wall. If you challenge them on something, they're like, "Oh, well, we said this." It's a classic communist approach. The classic communist dialectic is to be able to say two exact opposite principles in the same sentence without having anyone know it, except people who have an ear for it. And that's what we're doing now. That's what we're back to. Anyhow, yeah, you're welcome to join the program in this final portion. Please, if you're going to call now, because I am probably going to go off the air at 1:00. And what's been happening is that I suddenly get calls after I'm off the air, in which I take them and I'll talk to you, but it won't be on the air. So please call in this final segment if you are planning to do so today. 617-396-4958. I thought we were going to stop the steal. I am dedicated to trying to stop the steal in any way I can. I think it's going to get more and more difficult every passing day because they have really closed the wagons on it. And I don't know what to do about that. We have to keep talking about it. We have to keep investigating. I'm not going to stop. I will be having on Sidney Powell on this program. I will have on General Michael Flynn on this program. Giuliani will come on. Steve Bannon will come on. Joe DeGeneva, Victoria Tonsing, Jenna Ellis. They'll all come on at some point in the future, probably in the near future. Right now, they're all too busy, and they're not ready to talk about anything yet. The impeachment may allow the lawyers to show the truth. Yeah, I think so. They're pulling off another scam impeachment, another sham, another hoax. But they're going to pay a price for it because in the process, we're going to get testimony. Maybe we will get to the bottom of who was behind this incursion. I don't think it was Trump people. It certainly wasn't Trump. That's ridiculous. But I doubt if too many Trump people were involved in it. I mean, I think that some of them went in after the door was open because it was a mob. And they, I probably would have gone in. I mean, but the point is that the instigators, the people, the bad people, I think there's more evidence coming out that they were Antifa people and BLM dressed up as Trump people, dressed up as Trump supporters. In fact, there's a young woman actually on TikTok, and I've responded to her, who said this. She said she went down there with a Trump hat in order to take film. And she's bragging about it. And she says, oh, and I found these horrible people. I've got footage. Really? I sent back a note to her. I said, well, if you were undercover, as you described it, how do you know all these other people weren't undercover? Will we ever get to the truth of this? It's going to be difficult to. Latino votes for Biden. Vets for Biden? Fine. That's your right. All right. You're welcome to join the program in the final segment here. 617-396-4958 is the number. Please join me if you're welcome to. 617-396-4958. And the program is Monday through Friday. Oh, I forgot to record. Oh, that's okay. Monday through Friday. See, there's all these little buttons I have to press. And it's tricky. Anyway, Monday through Friday, 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you're welcome to do it. I'm committed this year to doing this program every single day. The other thing I would ask, as we were getting ready to sign off here, is please subscribe to my YouTube channel. The more subscribers I can get on YouTube, the more visibility I can get for the show, and it just helps all around. It helps with the algorithm and all that stuff. And if you want to get a copy of any of my books, they're available at Amazon Books. Just put my name in the server, Charles Moskowitz, like Moscow with a Witz, and you'll see them all come up. I just published a book. I'm publishing pamphlets this year, short books. I just published one a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, where I lay out what I think is evidence of the voter fraud and the stolen election and what that means for this country. It's called "We Are All Socialists Now: A Deplorable Looks at Election 2020." You can get it on Amazon by just going to the Amazon server and looking it up. Look up my name, Charles Moskowitz. And I'm working on one now, actually, that I hope to have out in maybe a month. We'll see how well I do. Where I'm going to do a full deep study of the 1776 project, which in one of his first executive orders, President Biden had removed from the White House website, and he had removed from consideration. And there was a big outcry in Trump's second to the last day of his term, where people said, oh, this was, it was racist because it didn't have an accurate look at history. Well, I'm doing a deep dive on that because I think that this was a document that was to put the culture in a direction that would be patriotic and fair, and that the removal of this document and the replacement of this document with critical race theory, which is evil in my opinion, is, in a sense, it tells us everything we need to know about not just this administration, but the culture that has allowed it to exist. And I think that it was Andrew Breitbart, the late Andrew Breitbart, who noted that politics is downstream from culture, and that it's culture that, in a sense, informs what becomes its manifestation, which is politics. So I'm going to be looking at the culture that is represented by this brilliant report, and I'm going to contrast that with the culture that's represented by the critical race theory report, which I would suggest is regressive and racist. What's the big deal about Q? You scared of something? No, I'm not scared of nothing. Look, I'm not one who signs on to Q because I don't have the name of someone. I don't know who's behind it. I like to see some accountability. And if I don't, then I'm suspicious. So I don't sign on to it. But having said that, I do support their contention that there's a lot of pedophilia going on in positions of high power in the world right now. I think they're right about that. If you look at the high levels of government, high levels in corporations, in culture, even in the church, I do think that they're probably right, that there are pedophilic rings that are exploiting children, that are engaging in sex trafficking, and that probably are engaging in satanic rituals. That's the basic thesis of the Q. And I think that that's largely right. Even if it's questionable, where's the media? Why don't they investigate this? We know about Jeffrey Epstein. He was connected to the CIA. Why isn't this being investigated? That's all I can ask. If you want to criticize, you want to throw rocks, fine. Why aren't you asking? It's just like the election steal. Let's have an investigation. We need to have journalists who have enough courage to step up. Glenn Greenwald was one of those people, very brave. Edward Snowden, Julian Assange. Look what happens when you step up and you reveal these truths. Look what happens. It's very scary. Thank you with my stat class. Yes, I'm studying statistics. I'm going to be getting a degree in sociology, and I have to study statistics, which is, I don't know, it's not the kind of subject that I find particularly scintillating. I hope I do well. I don't know. I know in the past I took a math class, which I failed. I'm not good at this. Maybe I'm too old for it. I don't know. I never, to go back and try to rethink these things. I'm more interested in politics, history, culture, philosophy, economy. So we'll see. Thank you, though. I mean, I'm going to be taking it every day. Anyway, I think I'm going to wrap it up at this point. Again, I want to thank you for joining me this afternoon. Check out my books at Amazon Books. Please subscribe to me on YouTube and on TikTok. Charles Moskowitz. Just put my name in the server and it'll come up. I've got some good guests coming up this week. I've got Steve Turley coming on tomorrow. I've got Matthew Vadum coming on Wednesday. Both brilliant authors, both good nationalists like me. And I'm committed to doing this every single day from 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I want to thank you all for joining me this afternoon. I just pray for this country. I pray, may God bless this country. May God bless both our president and our former president. We should say that. And let's hope we can proceed peacefully, but let's hope we can proceed with resolution in our quest to get to truths. Anyway, thank you for joining me, everyone.